Thank you very much, friends. Good evening and welcome to everybody. Uh, I am indeed honored and happy to be here amongst all of you to talk about the state of our democracy, which is indeed not just distressing, but very, very alarming. Before I talk about the state of democracy in the country today, we need to understand what is the essence of democracy in our republic under our constitution. See, democracy sometimes is understood as the right to be able to vote in an election, but that is not, that is only one part of democracy. In order for there to be democracy means rule by the people. And in order for there to be proper rule by the people, there needs to be several conditions which are satisfied, and which are the conditions which have been laid down in our constitution for our republic. Firstly, people need to be able to freely express themselves. So there needs to be proper freedom of speech, and people should be able to speak unhindered and give their opinion about what is going on in the country, what is happening to various institutions in the country, including what is happening to the judiciary, and what they feel about the policies that are being adopted by the government. What do they feel about the manner in which the government is functioning and various other institutions are functioning. Secondly, in order for democracy to survive, there need to be a number of institutions to protect it. And those institutions have been set up by our constitution, by our laws, etc. One of the most important of those institutions is an independent judiciary, which has been given the task of not only protecting the constitution, but protecting freedom of speech and other fundamental rights of the citizens and ensuring that there is rule of law in the country. There has to be an election commission, an independent election commission, which has been set up to ensure that the elections are free and fair. There has to be a parliament in which important discussions about policy, about law are held freely. And in Parliament also, there are various committees, parliamentary committees, in which various laws and policies are discussed or are supposed to be discussed threadbare. There has to be an independent comptroller and auditor general, which is to audit all the finances of the state. Uh, Apart from that, we have created various other institutions such as investigating agencies like the CBI, the National Investigating Agency, we have a National Human Rights Commission, and very importantly, we are required to have an independent media whose job is to inform the people about what is happening in the country and give the correct information, not just the information, but also varying different views about what's going on in the country. So, all these institutions and free speech is absolutely, and of course, other fundamental rights which have been set up in the Constitution, that is the right to equality among religions, among castes, etc. Every person is supposed to be equal under our Constitution. There is the right or the freedom of life and liberty, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to mean the right to live with dignity. So all these are essential for the functioning of a healthy democracy. I'll pause here so that this can be translated. See, where does our democracy stand on the basis of these uh, values and these institutions that I have just mentioned? Then if we look at freedom of speech and expression, today there is a very, very serious assault on the freedom of speech. Uh, People who speak against the government are being uh, charged with sedition. Some of them are being charged under various draconian laws like the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the National Security Act, etc. There are also people who are subjected to lynchings on the street, being beaten up on the streets. There is also a lynch mob on the social media, which is run by the BJP's IT cell, whose job is to abuse people who speak against the government, whose job is to threaten them with rape or murder, etc. And there is not just an assault on free speech, there is an assault on reason, there is an assault on truth, there is an assault on scientific temper. So today, the BJP's IT cell combined with their whole social media team and even large sections of the mainstream media are using those spaces to spread all kinds of hateful falsehoods, especially about the minorities and about activists who are speaking up against the government. They are also um, they are also uh, and thereby they are creating what is called a post-truth society, where people are unable to distinguish between what is true and what is false. As I said, there is an assault on scientific temper. The Constitution says that the state must encourage scientific temper, but today we are seeing that the opposite is happening. We have a government which is openly uh, promoting pseudoscience, superstition, and all kinds of scientific nonsense. The Prime Minister goes and tells children that there is no such thing as climate change. His ministers say that if you eat some kind of papad, then coronavirus will go away. Other ministers say that gobar will protect you from nuclear radiation. Other ministers say that if you say go corona go, then coronavirus will go away. So there is a wholesale attack on scientific temper, and there is an attack on critical thinking and reason itself. Universities, which are supposed to be places which encourage critical thinking, which encourage questioning of what is supposed to be the accepted wisdom or the conventional wisdom, where debates and discussions should be free and open. All those universities are being converted into order following uh, institutions where you have installed vice chancellors who come from the RSS, who have disallowed and barred any free discussion, debate, seminars, etc., on important social and political issues, where even faculty is suspended for organizing such political discussions, etc. And critical thinking is being actively discouraged. So, and there is an assault on our culture, in the sense a culture of vile abuse, shouting, screaming, uh, violence, lynching, etc., giving threats, etc. This kind of culture is being promoted. And unfortunately, this uh, BJP's IT cell, which promotes this kind of culture of abuse and threats and falsehoods, etc., this entire social media machine is managed and controlled by the Prime Minister himself, as Swati Chaturvedi has pointed out in her book, I Am a Troll. So, and there is an assault on the rule of law. Today, the police, instead of enforcing, the police and the judiciary, instead of enforcing the rule of law, has allowed absolute Gunda Raj to flourish. Every day we are seeing hundreds of rapes and murders taking place. And in many cases, people from the ruling party are involved in these rapes and murders. And we find that the police just looks on as bystanders and sometimes supports the people who are indulging in lynching, murdering, raping people, etc. So, this is a very, very serious assault on all the values which are essential in a democracy today. I'll just pause here so that this can be translated. There is an assault on all our regulatory institutions which have been created to protect our democracy. Parliament is not being allowed to function properly. Very, very few sessions of Parliament are being allowed today. And even in those sessions, sometimes bills are being passed without even being put to vote. Uh, and mostly we are seeing that laws are being passed through ordinances. And even when, as I said, when Parliament functions, as we saw in this agriculture bill, that the law was not even put to vote in the Raj Sabha, despite the opposition members asking for a vote. It was just passed through a voice vote in a lot of shouting and confusion, in which it was impossible to judge whether there was a majority in favor of that bill or not. The parliamentary committees are hardly functioning, and unlike the earlier practice where important bills were referred to parliamentary committees where detailed discussions on the bill could take place, now they are not even being referred to parliamentary committees. There is no pre-legislative consultation, and very often bills are introduced and passed the same day without members of parliament even having an opportunity to read what the draft bill or the draft law is. The next most important institution, or perhaps the most important institution, is the judiciary. The job of the judiciary, as I said, is to protect the constitution, ensure that the executive and the legislature function within their bounds, protect fundamental rights of the people. But today we are seeing that the judiciary has abdicated those functions. The constitution, mincemeat is being made of the constitution. As I said, even laws in parliament, we have an ordinance Raj, and even when matters are taken to parliament, they are taken without any prior information and passed without even a proper vote, etc. Then we find that innocent people who are just protesting against the Citizenship Amendment Act, which was a totally unconstitutional law, are being imprisoned right and left. On the other hand, people who are involved in creating riots like Kapil Mishra or Anurag Thakur, etc., they are not even being touched. The police which went and assaulted people in Jamia Millia, they are not being questioned. The police which allowed goons to get inside Jawaharlal Nehru University and beat up students and teachers, they are not being questioned. The challenge to the Citizenship Amendment Act is not being heard. The challenge to the abolition of Article 370 in Kashmir or converting the state of Kashmir into 3 union territories or the internet shutdown in Kashmir is they are either not being heard, or when that internet shutdown case was heard and they said that the shutdown was illegal, yet the matter was still sent back to the government for consideration, for that government committee for consideration. Habeas corpus petitions are not being heard by the judiciary. And the government has found a new way of, destroying the independence of the judiciary. There were an earlier method is also being used, which is to offer post-retirement jobs to people, such as this Raj Sabha membership, which has been offered to the former Chief Justice Gogoi, or the governorship, which was offered to the former Chief Justice Sathashivam, or various tribunals and commissions, etc., which are offered to other judges who retire. But apart from that, this government has found 2 new methods of curtailing the independence of the judiciary. One of them is not to appoint independent judges. So whenever the collegium recommends independent judges, the government just does not issue the notification to appoint them, just sits on that recommendation. And on the other hand, forces the collegium to appoint judges who have been affiliated to the ruling party. Then they are using investigating agencies like the IB, CBI, income tax, etc., in order to somehow uh, blackmail and then influence various judges in the judiciary also. So that is why we have found that the judiciary has collapsed. Unfortunately, the Chief Justice has enormous powers as master of roster, which means that he can fix any case before any bench that he wants. That is what the 4 judges who held a press conference in January 2018 had warned us about, that the then Chief Justice, was misusing his powers as master of roster to fix all politically sensitive cases before convenient benches in order to have them decided in a particular manner, which was endangering democracy. That same thing is still continuing. Apart from that, all other institutions, Election Commission, which was regarded as independent for so many years, is today not regarded as independent. We find that election dates are being fixed at the behest of and for the convenience of the ruling government. We find that the model code of conduct is not being enforced against the uh, important members of the ruling party. This kind of thing never happened earlier. The Comptroller and Auditor General has also, which was also an independent institution, has also started functioning as an arm of the government. For the first time in 70 years, the pricing details of a defense procurement deal in Rafale, for the Rafale aircraft, the pricing details were omitted from the CAG report. The audit of the offset contracts given to Anil Ambani's company, that was not done at the behest of the government. So we are seeing that the CAG is also functioning as the arm of the government. then the CBI, NIA, all these and the police have become caged parrots of the government, and they are being used in order to uh, pressurize and prosecute independent activists, sometimes even journalists who speak out independently and against the government. The mainstream media has been brought under the control of the government, or large sections of it, by the use of inducements, by the by way of government advertisement, sometimes even packets of money being sent to anchors and editors of various media organizations. And those who do not come around because of these inducements, they are threatened, such as NDTV was threatened by using the Income Tax Department, the CBI, Enforcement Department, Enforcement Directorate, etc. But one silver lining in the media is that because of the growth of the internet media, there are still a number of independent media platforms which have been functioning, despite attempts by this government to even somehow control these internet media organizations. And the social media, with all its faults, etc., also allows uh, independent people and individuals like Dhruv Rathi or Akash Banerjee, etc., to function independently. So that those are some silver linings. But other than that, we find that most of the regulatory institutions which are required in a democracy have been brought under the control of. Even elections have become a game of money. And today, unfortunately, because of the kind of changes in laws that have been made, the ruling party today has 10 times the money of all other opposition parties put together. In fact, we should have uh, made laws to reduce the role of money in elections. But instead of that, the present government has increased the role of money in elections. Though there is a limit to what individual candidates can spend in elections, but uh, there is no limit on what political parties can spend in elections. And it has been estimated that in the last general elections, the BJP spent about 50,000 crores in the elections, which was 10 times more than all the other opposition parties put together. Uh, uh, a lot of money, even the limit on expenses by individual candidates is not obeyed, because candidates spend sometimes 10 times, sometimes even 100 times the limit by cash without disclosing that. When this demonetization was brought, the Prime Minister said that this will help in making a cashless economy. One can understand that poor people cannot do all their transactions through bank, but at least political parties and candidates could have been forced to have all their transactions, whether their donations or their spending, through the bank and not in cash. But that was not done. Instead of that, three very retrograde changes were made in laws. The first was that they allowed political parties to get even foreign donations. The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was made primarily to prevent political parties, candidates, and public servants from getting foreign funds. But that has been amended to allow political parties to get foreign funding from subsidiaries of foreign companies. The limit on individual corporations' donations to political parties has been removed, and the earlier limit, which was 7.5% of the annual profits of the companies, that has been completely removed. Any amount of donations can be given by corporates to political parties. And in addition to that, electoral bonds have been introduced to allow anonymous donations to political parties, as a result of which the ruling party, the BJP, has received tens of thousands of crores by way of electoral bonds, which are nothing but likely to be nothing but bribes. So it has opened the way of bribes being given to the ruling party through this anonymous instrument of electoral bonds. So, and the reason why money plays such a big role in elections is because when people go to vote, they don't merely vote for the candidate that they consider to be the best or the party that they consider to be the best. Because if they feel, because they know that only the party which gets the maximum number of votes is going to win, which means that that party or that candidate will become the sole representative of that constituency. And when a government is formed, the party or the coalition which gets a majority forms the whole government, and the opposition has nothing. So therefore, there is first past the post at two levels: when you vote for your candidate, and thereafter when the government is formed. And the result of this is that you don't vote for the candidate or the party that you consider best if you feel that he has no chance of winning, because you don't want to waste your vote. Therefore, you vote for the least bad among the candidates or parties who you think have some chance of winning. And your perception of who has a chance of winning is formed largely on the basis of the visibility of that candidate or the party. And that visibility is largely a function of money. With money, you can put up any number of, can have any amount of advertising, any number of posters, hoardings. You can even organize large rallies by paying people to come for your rallies. And you can have paid workers who go around distributing your posters and handbills, etc. So elections have become more and more a game of money power, and because of the change laws, the ruling party enjoys a disproportionate advantage in money power. And therefore, this has also greatly eroded democracy or even electoral democracy in this country. All in all, our democracy is in great danger. In fact, even during the emergency in 1975 to 77, democracy was not in the kind of danger that it is today. We have almost become an autocracy in this country with some trappings of democracy left, but essentially the spirit of democracy has been removed from our institutions, from our values and culture, etc. So, what do we do? What is the role of citizens? We have to work at two levels. Of course, we have to somehow reform our institutions and our work towards reforming our institutions and our policies, including the judiciary, etc. And for that, a very important document had been prepared by a lot of very eminent people last year. It's called Reclaiming the Republic. This document is a very important document. It is on the website, and the website is reclaimingtherepublic.in. You should all read this document. It contains recommendations of the kind of reforms that are required on various issues, such as electoral reforms, judicial reforms, media reforms, reforms on employment, food and social security, reforming anti-democratic legislations and police reforms, reforms to improve public accountability and participation, health reforms, education reforms, agriculture reforms, environmental reforms, and reforms for inclusion of and justice for vulnerable populations. These are the issues which have been dealt with in this document, which is very, very important. But the question is, how do we achieve those reforms? If the present government continues in office, and this is clearly a fascist government, which does not believe in democracy, which is hell bent on destroying democracy, then how will we achieve these reforms? For this, we need uh, to create enormous public opinion. The public opinion does two things. Firstly, it creates a pressure even on the existing government for these reforms. And even this government is responsive to public pressure. But more than that, that public opinion will help in overthrowing this government. And that is the need of the hour today. Now, public opinion can be created by even in the present environment, despite the attempts of this government to throttle free speech, to uh, to prosecute people who are speaking against the government, etc. Fortunately, there are still many, many courageous people who are still standing up despite the threats that are meted out to them. There are also important media organizations, especially on the internet and on social media, individuals on social media who are also standing up. Therefore, uh, we can, the civil society in this country can play a very, very major role in shaping public opinion. And today there are many issues which need to be taken up. There is the issue of the economy and employment. There is this issue of agriculture. There is this issue of democracy itself and this whole communal assault that on secularism that we are seeing in this country. All these are, there are issues of education, which are very important and serious issues. On all these issues, including judicial reforms, media reforms, electoral reforms, etc., we need to have major campaigns to educate the people and to mobilize public opinion. And we are seeing the effect of this in the Bihar elections. I believe that Bihar will be the political turning point for this country, because there this issue of employment and the economy was raised very effectively by the opposition. And I believe that the NDA is going to be defeated in the Bihar elections and the opposition will come to power there. And that will have a cascading effect on state elections which are to be held next year in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Assam, etc. So therefore, all is not lost despite the very, very poor health of democracy in this country. There is still hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And if we work courageously and if we work hard to build public opinion, to educate public opinion, then we can and we will still reclaim our republic. Thank you very much.